Hello there and welcome back to my channel. I'm Chase Moser and today I'm going to be going over Candyman from 1992. It tells the story of a hook-handed urban legend where you say his name 5 times in the mirror and he shows up to whoever summons him and kills them instantly. It's part slasher, part psychological, and it deals with themes of classism and racism, and it's definitely haunting and beautiful. And it's got a score like no other. It's terrifying, and it was one of the earliest horror films I ever saw. My dad showed me whenever I was very young because he doesn't really like horror films, and he said if there was ever one I was going to watch with him, that it would be this one. So he showed me one night, and it has stuck with me forever. Tony Todd's performance is amazing, and the actress who plays Helen is just as great. So with all of that being said, let's get right into the cult classic, Candyman. Candyman is a great story because it's definitely an underappreciated movie, but it starts off with this girl who is in college and she is working on her thesis, trying to become a reporter, and she is looking into crimes in certain areas. There is this part of the town or this neighborhood called Cabrini Green that is very underdeveloped and poor, and so as a result it has a lot of black community members and a lot of gang violence there who pick up the name of Candyman, trying to keep the urban legend alive, and she is wondering what the fascination is with that. Obviously, as she goes poking around into business that is not hers, she is in a lot of dangerous situations, and it's almost her naiveness that keeps her out of trouble, but at the same time she gets into way more than she can handle or more than she bargains for. While trying to figure out who had killed a girl named Ruthie Jean, Helen and her friend Bernadette go down to a very bad part of town and try to put connections together. And there's this urban legend and this myth about Candyman that people seem to be afraid of. And there are real life murders happening, and they're trying to figure out why people keep attributing those things to Candyman. And they're not being able to find a killer. So her pursuit of the truth in that story and doubting the urban legend makes her able to uncover a lot of different details, and it's almost at this point where the film becomes like a trance state. She is trying so hard to prove her point that she believes in. After experiencing several weird outcomings where she's seeing the murals and figuring out what happens behind the mirrors and what happens in buildings that are gentrified and communities that have to deal with that kind of problem. So whenever she is in that part of town, no one is ever paying attention to the crimes that kind of go on there. They just kind of pass it off as, well, if black people are going to be violent and dangerous, then we're not going to pay any attention to that. And she is trying to fight that, but also bring a realness to why don't people pay as much attention. And there's this theme of all of this violence that's happening and the cops don't do anything about it, but Helen goes there and gets attacked one time and it's cops everywhere and they're non-stop trying to figure out who it is, and they're trying to get people arrested, and they end up finding the killer. But a lot of people bring up the point to that character about that it's do you not see how no one cares? And so there's a lot of elements that are mixed in through this. So it's not just a horror movie, it's not just a slasher movie. There is commentary, there is so many woke things that it's trying to say and do, and I really appreciate it for how smart and clever it is, because it makes it real, and it makes it painful, and it makes it able to understand. They finally catch the killer who's assaulted Helen and been carrying around this hook and killing people and passing himself off as the Candyman, basically taking up the name of the lure. So whenever she thinks that it's all done and put to bed, she's in a great mood, and she's ready to work on her article when she is met with the real Candyman himself, Tony Todd, and he explains that the whole process of fear that keeps him alive and the urban legend and his living on forever, his immortality, all stems from a certain amount of stories and myths that these people tell over and over again. She's uncovering some of the horrible things that happened to Candyman, and I think his name is Daniel. his real name whenever he was alive. He was actually a part of, I forget exactly what had happened, but some sort of wrong killing had happened where he was in love with like a white girl and they shouldn't have been. It was very bad at the time, and they like chased him down and slaughtered him, and you just hear his backstory, and I think that it makes it so scary trying to understand where or why or what this killer or what this person's motive is. He has this way of picking Helen to be his victim and to be the next story and to be the next legend, because she did so much work to unravel his web. He has to make a point of her. So this story starts to look like she is killing all of these people, and he's leaving her in really bad situations, like waking up covered in blood. That was one of the scariest parts of the film for me, and how she's wrongly accused and put into the asylum. I just remember feeling so sick at that. Like, it was so upsetting, and you really want to be on her side, and you're rooting for her. You want her to get these answers. You want her justice. And when the baby is missing, you are wanting it to be found. We don't know if it's alive or not, and if Candyman has already sacrificed it. And there's this whole aspect where she's slowly being entranced and hypnotized by him, and it's sort of like a gothic romance almost, because she's learning that she might be or is the reincarnated version of his lover, and it has been him and her since the beginning, and she was destined to find him and find this lore and be a part of this. And he keeps saying, it was always you, Helen, and it'll be me and you forever. It makes for such a tragic story, and Helen is trying her hardest to get back her life, discovering that her husband has moved on, left her, and pretty much wanted her committed and moved on. He wasn't even thinking about her. She comes home to seeing this new girl of his in this apartment that used to be hers. And already you've seen kind of like where Helen started off at the beginning of the film versus where she is now, and the kind of changes that have happened to her, and the kind of downfall that the character has experienced. And learning about Candyman has really put her off her path, and it's so interesting trying to figure out how she deals with what's going on next. Trying to bring justice to everything that she's been through and save that baby, especially when we're coming to the end and the music is swelling. It's so emotional. She's trying her best to keep her moral compass intact. There are so many things that look wrong. She looks like the bad guy, but she knows the truth, and she is just trying to do what's right. And by saving this baby out of the burning pile is so metaphoric for her actions and her growth, and where, like I said, she started this film versus now. And those last couple minutes of her burning and her hair melting off and handing the baby are so painful to watch, because you're not sure if she's made it out alive or what kind of injury she's going to be sustaining, but you know in the end that she can't make it, and you end up seeing her funeral and the people who show up there. It shows you the impact that she had, and that whenever she was handing that baby out at the end, that people really saw her sacrifice and brought that mother and child back together. And it's really interesting because he ends up coming back in the very direct sequel, Candyman 2021, and I think that one is just as good as this one. It definitely deals with the race problem, the Candyman lore, and a very new and elevated outlook on that. I think people were expecting that to be a sequel like how some of the other ones are, but it definitely expanded the world and expanded what the story of Candyman is, and I thought it was a great addition to the franchise. But back to this, yes, it was just amazing, and I remember being so moved by the scene where he is regretting his choices at the end and calls her name Helen 5 times in the mirror. And then it was terrifying, and she shows up and has her revenge, and you are so fucking happy. You're like clapping on her part, because she literally had everything taken away from her, and it's like now in death she's beautiful and powerful and can be anywhere and everywhere. And it's just insane the kind of twist that this movie has. You don't see this coming. I would have never predicted this. You don't expect Helen to have the kind of arc that she does, and for being a kind of maybe final girl or whatever you would call her, it's definitely interesting wherever she exists now. Candyman is one of my favorite movies. I think it's definitely one of the scariest ones as well. I think it holds up really, really well. I haven't seen the other sequels in a very long time. I remember thinking they weren't as good as the first one, and so that's why I really appreciated the direct sequel from 2021. Candyman is such an icon of the horror history franchises because there's Freddy and Jason and Ghostface and Michael Myers and Chucky and Leatherface and Hellraiser and Candyman. I mean, he's a hook-handed killer that's different than the I Know What You Did Last Summer killer. And he's got a backstory that's heartbreaking, and he's got a presence that's menacing. Tony Todd's voice is so deep and enchanting, and the whole covered in bees and honey and blood with the hook for a hand. It's just terrifying, and it's a perfect image, and it's a perfect staple in horror history. I absolutely love him, and I think that he's a really, really great, horror movie villain. He definitely deserves a lot more praise and a lot more recognition. And I think maybe some more sequels or even a TV show. I mean, that's definitely how most franchises are working out to be these days, and I'm not mad about it. I think it's very good. There's a lot of content that's coming out that is amazing. Well, with all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed my review of Candyman, and it was fun. It was amazing. I always love watching this movie. I just showed it to my boyfriend for the first time, and he said he was totally enticed by it, and it scared him so bad. And we love that, so that's always fun. I can't wait to show him some of the other movies. We watched the direct sequel together as well, and that was fun because we watched it for the first time together, first time viewing each. And let me know what you think about Candyman down in the comments, and do you like his weapon, his backstory, where is he amongst your killers, and how do you rate this franchise? Let me know all that good stuff down in the comments below, and make sure you check out some of my other videos. I've done a bunch of different genres. I'm gonna do a bunch more, and sometimes I live stream with my friends, so be sure to check out for that. I also have a community tab page where I interact with people and post polls, questions, fun videos, and things like that every couple of days. That's kind of like the best way to interact with me, so make sure you see what I'm doing there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.